Hello and welcome to the Ridiculously Good VA Show with Tracy Daviero. If you are a virtual assistant or want to be one, this is the place to learn the tips and tricks you need to become a ridiculously good VA. I've been a part of the VA industry since 1998, and I'm excited to get to know you and help you build an amazing business. Let's go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast that teaches you how to be a ridiculously good virtual assistant. Today we're going to talk about overthinking. While thinking as a business owner is a really good skill, doing too much of it can keep you stuck. Today's quote is from Erma Bombeck. Overthinking is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but doesn't get you anywhere. Erma Bombeck always gave such solid advice, and I think this is really an excellent analogy. Staying stuck is not the answer. It's time to go places. If you're somebody who overthinks things, this episode is for you. Honestly, it's for us. I do it too. I would be willing to bet that everyone listening has done it at one time or another. So, why is overthinking such a big deal? Well, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's okay. But if it's a repeated habit and something that you don't have control over, then there are a lot of reasons why it's bad. But the good news, as always, is that we can fix it. Here are some of the reasons why it's not good to overthink. It keeps us stuck where we are. It keeps us from making decisions. It makes things seem bigger than they probably are. It keeps you stuck in the past, reflecting maybe on what you could have done or said better. It helps you make excuses about why you didn't do or say something. And it makes you worry about things that haven't even happened yet. Staying stuck is a really common issue for virtual assistants anyway. And so I just think it's really not good to let overthinking go on top of that. And maybe part of the reason that we get stuck on things is the overthinking. I like to think it's more that we are thorough and still learning how to do a lot of things. So I wouldn't put it down. I wouldn't put the delays that we have as VAs and the things that hold us up always as overthinking. But I think when we actually put the overthinking on top of it, it compounds it, right? The more you think about something, the more you actually train your brain to think about it. So, something that you think you're putting out of your mind, if you are continuing to think about it subconsciously, your brain is going to just keep it there all the time. And so that's the reason. If we're not making those decisions and if we're not taking those steps forward, that's why we're stuck where we are. And when you allow yourself to think like that and be like that, you're creating really bad habits, right? It is just a bad habit. But it may be something that you've had for years. So let me ask you something right out of the gate. Are you actually aware when you are overthinking? Like, are you aware when it's happening? If you aren't, then that's really the first thing that you have to look at. You have to be able to be aware. Awareness is super important. And it's not easy sometimes to identify that, especially because we think a lot, right? I know for me, and I tell you guys this all the time, that I will often sit in silence in my office, in my house, because if there's nobody around, I just think. And thinking is not always the best way to work through things. And so I think it is really important to get things out in the open and loud, but the awareness is something that might not come. You might not even be aware that you're doing something until somebody points it out or until you start looking for it yourself. And my suggestion is to put a system in place to help yourself because we can rely on people, and it is important to be able to have conversations with other business owners and colleagues and that kind of thing to help us through the things that maybe we're not doing very well. But you do need to be able to identify when something is going wrong and having a system in place for yourself so that you can get yourself out of it, particularly if it's something that happens daily or even hourly in some cases, right? We want to get better at it. We want to not underthink, but we just want to curb all the things that are coming up and that are keeping us stuck and keeping us from doing the things that we want to do. And that's going to take some practice. but you have to start somewhere. So what do I suggest? I suggest, like everything I suggest for you, writing your system down. And then as you use it, well, I guess that's the part two. Write your system down. And number two, use it. And then make changes to it every time you use it as necessary so that you do get better at handling the situations and the times whenever you are correcting the course, correcting your own course. If you've had this habit for a really long time, it will take time to change it. It's like losing weight, right? If you've taken 20 years to put on 20 pounds, you're not going to be able to take it off in a couple of days. You need to understand that reversing the process takes a little bit at a time. And again, when we think about our brain is accustomed to react in the way or in the, yes, I guess in the sense that whatever it sees more often, it's going to go in that direction, right? There's probably a technological term for it. And I want to be really clear. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I'm not any of those things. This is just my opinions on the whole overthinking process. I'm not, there are, I'm sure, studies and all kinds of things that go into this, but I think I can give you some practical tips for the things that I've done before that have really helped. And so I guess it's more advicey than clinical. So I want to be really clear about that. But you do need a system to help yourself get out of that overthinking valley when you get there because you're putting yourself there. And so you need to do that little bit of mindset work to correct your brain so that your brain is then thinking about the more positive things and moving in that direction and reminding you of the positive things. And part of that is important to never beat yourself up for going back there. Don't get frustrated if you find yourself overthinking again after you've made a little bit of progress and then all of a sudden, you're back to where you were at one point. Just understand that it's a process and it's something that you need a lot of practice with to correct. And that's why the system should be written down. So you just naturally go to it and you start to follow it whenever you know that you're in a position where you need it. All you need to do is just plan to move back out as quickly as you can. So, first things first, you do need to keep an eye out for when you're overthinking. Look for the signs, whatever your signs are, so that you can identify when it's happening and then consult that system. Go grab that book. I say to write things down. You guys know how important I think that is because I think it's not only a quick reference where, it's like a checklist that we can go through, but I think what it helps you to do is, like I said earlier, make those little corrections, add in the make the changes that you need to each time that you use it so that it gets better, it becomes more efficient, or it helps you, it makes you happier, makes some kind of a positive gain so that you are able to then improve it every time you use it. And that becomes the piece that allows you to get out of it, right? So look for the solution to the problem. It's really, really important to be able to focus on the positive. And again, that's not always easy, but it is important. So focus on fixing the issue. Look at it as objectively as you can, even though sometimes that can be difficult because it is a personal thing, right? So what do I suggest for that is the same thing that I suggest all the time: stepping out of your own situation so that you can look objectively at what's going on. Trying not to get carried away by your own emotions. In the beginning, you're going to think nobody understands and nobody's ever had this issue before. I can absolutely assure you that there are people who understand and there are people who have had your issue before. And they've moved through it, right? Some of them well, some of them not so well. But the only way to move through it is to be that person and build that system that's going to work for you. Maybe, mindset work doesn't work for you. Maybe unplugging doesn't work for you. Maybe, talking to a therapist doesn't work for you. Maybe just positive thoughts and affirmations don't work for you. What are the things that do work for you? For me, it's always about, writing down the things that could go right and focusing on getting to the other side of it. What if a client of yours or a loved one presented an issue as overthinking. I always suggest treating yourself like a client when you're having trouble doing something. You guys hear me talk about that all the time. What if you were the client when we're talking about doing our marketing message and all of those things? What if you were doing this work for a client? Research is a really big thing. And, there's all, what would you do if it was for a client? I want you to put yourself in that situation here as well. So if your client or a loved one presented an issue that you could see was overthinking, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them? How would you help them? And how would you be objective about it? I want you to write all of those things down in your journal, in your system, whatever you want to call it. I suppose I could have named it, but like I say, this is just my advice here. You want to write all of the things down, and because you need to go and do those things for yourself. I know I tell you the stories about my clients who can't talk positively about themselves or be able to sell themselves in a marketing, say in a like an elevator pitch. When you're putting together your marketing message and they're trying to do an elevator pitch, they can't speak about themselves. They say, I find it really hard to boost myself up and talk about myself in a positive frame. But then I turn it around and I say to them, well, do that for me then, or do that for your spouse, or do that for somebody, a client that or a colleague that you're really fond of, and that they do a good job. And they can spew all kinds of good information. It's just a personal block in your mind. And so if you need to get some help with it, to write down your positives and be able to do that, then that's what you need to do, right? It can be difficult to do those things for yourself, but you can do it. It's not like you can't. And especially in the beginning, you want to be able to get help with this process or this system because it's something that you've never done before. And if you're already kind of in, sort of stuck in it, in the overthinking, sometimes putting this little process together, this system together can be challenging as well. It can defeat you. So get some help doing it and get some advice and practice. Just know that practice is going to make perfect. Everything that we do, the more often we do it, the better we get at it. And this is absolutely no exception, okay? I promise you, the more that you do it, the more that you practice your system, the better you're going to get at it. And as you start to get a process in place and you get to work on this particular thing that is keeping you stuck, your problems will be less as well because you're going to identify them sooner, and you are going to know that you have a way to get out of them, right? When you have worked through something, whatever it is, if you are having trouble making a decision about something, setting your rates or choosing a target market or paying a bill or bringing in a new expense or breaking up with a client, firing a client, whatever it is, whatever the thing is that you're really having trouble with and really overthinking, when you have worked through it, put that into your system binder or book as well. Okay, take a moment to write it down, because then what's going to happen is that the next time you find yourself overthinking or in that situation, you're going to see a success, right? You're going to see something, you're going to see that you did it, and you can always do it, but you want to be able to celebrate that success. And by writing it down and keeping it there for yourself, you're going to prove it to yourself. That will be your reminder. And remember that brain thing again, where your brain will go, oh yes, that's right, we do know how to do this. And we do survive after firing a client, or we did make a good decision on changing our rates, or this is the right target market for us, and we don't have to keep on thinking and wondering. We can just move forward. And never beat yourself up when you realize you're holding yourself back because of overthinking, especially, like I say, if you're still moving through it and you think that you've set yourself back, or you're in a setback. You're not. You're just still working through it. And when you have your system written down, we have those successes written down, it's going to help you with the confidence that you need to just keep going, right? Always honor your thoughts and feelings. Never try to just shut them off. I don't think that that works. Again, I'm not clinical, I'm not a brain specialist, but I don't think just shutting things off is easy to do. But be really aware that you need to change things if you're going to move forward. So have your feelings and understand them, but know that they're not the right ones in this particular situation to get you to the goal that you want to get to. And remember that you can't control everything. When things are rough for you, focus on the things that you can control. Change the things that you can change and move past the things that you can't change. And again, always get help if something seems too big, or if it seems like it's one of those things that you have to change, but you just don't know how, or you feel that you can't. Get someone to help you. That's what colleagues and coaches and lots of other people in the world are for. And definitely focus on what can go right. I think it's so important that to remember there is always a good side, and there is always a success to a failure, or a positive to a negative, and you deserve to be there, and you're going to get there if you let yourself get there and if you help yourself get there. And actually handling the overthinking is going to do wonders for you. You're going to start to move forward, even if it is just in baby steps. You're going to be able to make those decisions that you need so you're not spinning your wheels anymore. You're going to see things for what they really are and not the huge issues that you're presenting yourself now. Nothing's as big as you think it is. You're going to focus on the future and learn from what has happened already so that you can pay much more attention to the stuff that you did right, that stuff you're writing down. You will stop making excuses because you'll be saying and doing the right things more often or faster than you have before. It's not about being perfect. And you'll worry a lot less because you're going to focus on the future and all the positive stuff that you now can see for yourself because you're building that for yourself. You're understanding that, yes, when I make a decision, I'm going in the right direction and I'm being supported and I'm being happy about it. And so when things start to pop up for you, when something negative pops up or when something that you're just unsure of, it doesn't always have to be negative. It can just be something that you're unsure of. Grab that system, right? Remember that you worked your way through something last time. And if you did it by yourself, that's even better. And that you can do it again. And then my final advice is a lot of people suggested giving yourself time to overthink, like setting a timer, and then when that timer goes off, just stop and like flip that switch. I do a lot of research whenever I do my podcast episodes and all of my content. And so I look to see what other people are talking about. Absolutely, I do. And this came up with just about well, I don't know if they're experts, but the people that I was reading about and the people that I was seeing, and I just don't see the value in that, in just, shutting it off. But I would be remiss if I didn't bow to the experts. If that's what they say that you should do, then I have to make sure that I put it in here. For myself, I get the idea of identifying it, but I can't quite see how you can just let yourself be upset for a specific period of time and then shut it off. What I prefer to do is identify it and then go to my system and say, okay, what do I need to do? Not about, okay, I'll let myself wallow in it for 30 minutes and then just stop. I think that it's like, oh my gosh, I'm overthinking again. Where's my book? Let's go do this and let's see what we can do. You can do whatever works for you, absolutely. But for me, as I always tell you, I can't teach you something that I don't have experience with. So that's my little caveat for you. It's in here because so many people suggested it, but for me, I think that would be really hard. So my preferred advice is to say, when you see yourself in that overthinking valley, go get your book, go get your system, and start to walk yourself out of it. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope I was able to give you some practical tips today on how to handle your habit of overthinking. If you need some help with getting your system in place to fix your overthinking, absolutely reach out to me at tracy@yourvamentor.com. I have helped hundreds of VAs through challenges and got them on their way to the next thing, and I would love to do the same thing for you. I do private coaching and my new mastermind, the Virtual Circle. Registration is open now. Maybe one of those options is right for you. That's all I've got for you this week. Thanks you for tuning in to become a ridiculously good virtual assistant. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Ridiculously Good VA Show. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. For more great resources for your VA business, visit my website at yourvamentor.com. I'll see you back here next time.